Greetings, my brothers and sisters. Sending gratitude to all of you who are joining in today to accompany us down the rabbit hole of self-exploration through plant medicines. My name is Ryan Sprague, and I'm here to tell you that your frequency is now set and tuned to explore psychedelic medicines and the impact they've made among the countless psychonauts exploring the last true frontier. Buy a ticket and take the ride with me as we get true first-hand accounts of the experiences, benefits, risks, and transformations taking place within the ever-expanding world of psychedelic medicines on This One Time on Psychedelics. When we look back in antiquity, our ancestors all had some sort of ritual practice. For me, having a daily ritual practice allows me to have time with myself, by myself, to become still and check in as to how my energy feels each particular day. And from that information, I know how to plan my day ahead. In addition, these daily rituals help bring me closer to my innate nature, which I do believe is pure awareness witnessing this experience we call life. And as such, these rituals allow me to remember who and what I truly am before the challenges of the day present themselves and have the opportunity to throw me off of my center. Today's returning guest on the show is a man who, as soon as I met, I was blown away at the incredible amount of knowledge and wisdom he holds surrounding the subjects of shamanism, spirituality, emotional awareness, plant medicines, health and well-being, and much, much more. In this episode, we will be picking up where we left off and diving into the idea of rituals, why they are important, what his tips are for those of you out there looking to establish a ritual practice in your life, and whatever else the divine wills into action within this epic heart and soul flow we will be embarking upon today. So please help me in welcoming my man, Jason Pickard, back onto the show. Jason, my man, such a pleasure to have you back.
Great to be back for round two.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm pumped.
Yeah, man. You know, I think I say this in the outro, but I knew the first time I had you on, I knew the first time I met you, but especially after the first time I had you on, I'm like, oh, we're going to have multiple rounds on this show. You know, I'm excited for the time we get to do it in person at your place. I'll bring Shlomo up and we'll do it in person. And, you know, it's so cool, man. We've got to see each other and chat a lot recently. We were just in Austin and we did that great quadcast, and you and Cal did an amazing episode that I got to hear a lot of before we went on that quadcast. And it's just so amazing to be back in your presence, man. I'm so excited.
Oh, I just so appreciate it. It's just such a great opportunity to be here with you. You know, I love it.
So much fun, man. Podcasting is really my favorite thing. And like I said in the intro, you know, we were chatting yesterday when I hit you up and we were discussing what to talk about within this episode. And I thought a great place to start would be rituals, because what I've found is that a lot of people, they get into plant medicines and they don't really have a ritual practice. And so the thing with rituals is that a lot of times this could be synonymous or said to be synonymous with the idea of integration, because integration really is having time with yourself, by yourself, to actually process what you go through in a plant medicine experience and then how you wish to apply that experience to your day-to-day life. And so I think this is a really cool part to start on with regards to rituals, because I think for a lot of people listening, they might be lacking these and they might be curious as to why their PEAK plant medicine experiences are not leading over into their life and allowing them to have PEEK peak experiences, where their daily life starts to resemble the magic they feel within their plant medicine experiences. And so I'm really excited to talk about rituals.
Great. Yeah. I think that's really the key point, is that these plant medicine experiences are here to open us up to what's possible in our daily life. And I think that'll be a real key topic today to explore. So, you know, if we're thinking about the word ritual, I studied the Vedas in Sanskrit with my teacher, Jeffrey Armstrong, Kavindra Rishi. And the word ritual comes from the word ritam, R-I-T-T-A-M. And ritam are the purposeful laws of nature. So therefore, rituals are to get us in touch with these purposeful laws of nature. If you study nature and you see the cycles and you see the different functions of creation, maintaining, and recycling or letting go, if you look at how everything has a seed stage, a growth stage, a maturing, a flowering, a wither, a decaying, and a dying, you start to notice that everything around us is governed by a set of laws. And most of us in our culture have just completely ignored this, right? So if we think about the realm that we live in, it's inherently dark. It takes the sun that rises each morning to shine into our world, to enlighten us from an endarkened state, right? And this sun is sort of the source of fire. And before we had light in our home to light everything all the time, we could just turn on the lights. The fire was there, was the only way that we could really have any light, or if the sun was coming up, right? And this fire had to be respected because it could be dangerous. It could be something that could burn down our house. So now we're seeing that fire and light are connected, and the name for that fire in the Vedas is Agni. And so this light and fire sit at the center of human existence. We are essentially fire users. Before fossil fuels and computers, we were fire users. And so our relationship to these things was so obvious, right? We had a relationship to trees. I mean, we're literally in a mouth-to-mouth resuscitation with trees, right? They're our lovers. We're kissing them and we're sucking air with them moment to moment, right? We give out carbon dioxide, they take it in, and they give off oxygen. And they give off, they humbly, graciously throw off pieces of themselves, branches and limbs that we can gather and build a fire, right? So this fire is a personification of a deva. A deva is the Vedic term for the personification of the laws of nature, right? So the sun is called Surya. And so that deva is a personification of the purposeful laws of the sun, right? So this acts as the ignition for existence. And everything here on our planet is here to capture the sun and condense it and make it available for us. And that fire is also metaphorically inside of our belly, right? So when we think, another name for the sun is Arca. And that gives us the word archaeology and archives, and interestingly, archetypes, right? So this sun is the origin of all forms of our reality, and it's a movie. It's literally like a movie projector projecting light into our cosmos. So this archetypal realm is also could be known as a Devic realm, right? And so this archetypal realm is the realm of the ideas or the blueprint for nature. We can't make a cup until the idea of a cup is in our mind, right? We plan to make a cup based on an archetype. And we live amidst all of those archetypes. And these archetypes are the purposeful cause and effects of nature that we call science. But our modern day science has taken away this relationship with the purposeful laws of nature. So continuing on, anything in the tangible state of matter had to have a blueprint stage, had to have a realm of ideas. All ideas had to be brought into nature. We didn't just make the trees, right? What's the intelligence behind all of this beauty and all of this action that's going on around us? Like, what is the intelligence that makes a human body? We didn't just throw a few chemicals together in a lab and make this amazing human body. There's an intelligence behind it, right? It was put here purposefully. And this is the missing vitamin in our society. And so, continuing on, these devas and devis are the blueprints, the archetypes, or the ideation level that is made into trees, that is made into the planets, that are made into our body. And this all exists on this blueprint level. So every time you light a fire, and now it's more of turning on your stove or putting food into the fire in your belly, you should talk to these personified laws of nature, these devas, because you literally just evoked one. And you have to know they're there based on the evidence of their existence. Like I said, could you make your own body, right? You can't just throw chemicals together, right? So in the Vedas, they have this idea of the Agni Hotri Yagya, and it's the reverence for this light of fire. So we go out and we collect wood that the trees just humbly and graciously shed for us, and we gratefully collect this wood and we bring it back into our homes, right? And we light a fire, and when we light a fire, we are making an offering to these devas that we just evoked, right? And we have to contain the fire So there was the idea of the pot that was created, and you had to use fire to make a pot. And it's interesting that the pot is something that can actually withstand the fire so that you can cook the food in it, right? So there's this large cooperative intelligence that has to happen to make the food, from the metal you extracted from the earth to make the pot with the fire to refine it, to make it into something that you can actually cook with. And at the heart of all this fire is the sun. All of the light beams of the sun are striking the earth, and they're all carrying all these messages to the species to conduct their lives, informing pollination, causing everything to grow. So the first mantra that one would learn as a yogi is called the Gayatri mantra. That's the first initiation. And I was initiated into this mantra by my teacher, Jeffrey Armstrong, right? And it's to recognize that when the sun rises, the light is returning. We wouldn't have this electricity, and it would be this amazing thing that when the sun came up, it'd be so dramatic where we went into this completely dark world, until all of a sudden the sun was there. So this symbiotic relationship needs to be sung about and needs to be articulated. So the Gayatri mantra goes like this. I'll just say it for you, and then we'll break it down. It goes Om Bhu Bhuva Sva Tatsavito Varenyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. So Om Bhu Bhuva Sva, above where I am, below where I am. We're here on what they call Bhumi Loka. It's Middle Earth, and so there's lokas, or there's dimensions above us and below us. So above where I am, below where I am, and where I am. Tat Savitor Varanium, the light of the sun is shining everywhere. From that sun is coming Shakti and Shakti Ma, the masculine and the feminine principle. The rays of the sun is feminine, and the sun itself is masculine, metaphorically speaking. Bargo Devasya Dhimahi. In my intrinsic nature, I am just like that sun. We should be dancing that this sun comes back. What does it feel like to be in a week of rain and fog? It's terrible, right? We want it to go away. We should be just celebrating each morning that this sun is rising. Diyo Yona Prachodayat. I adore that great light so that I may shine like it, right? So this whole idea of enlightenment started thousands of years ago, where there was a good morning mantra, a good morning ritual to teach all the humans to sing as the sun rises and to remember all day long the light of the sun shining within us. And this relationship with this Devic realm is a critical relationship, because the laws of nature are enacted from that dimension. They're brought into manifestation in our planet. And that's what we call creation, maintaining, and recycling, right? If you don't put the ashes from your fire back into the earth, a few seasons later, the earth will not produce food. And so thanking all of these laws of nature, cooperating with them, that they made this beautiful feast that's in front of you, not like, oh, nice meal burp, turn on CNN for 5 hours, right? It's like, oh, I'm so grateful for this meal. It's like going to somebody's house, and it's not just saying thank you for the meal. It's saying, how can I give back? How can I help you? Can I do the dishes, right? So we've erased all these things. Our modern science and our modern religion have erased all of these things, instead of thanking these divine beings as the beings behind the archetypal realm that brings everything into existence, right? So, the Lakota say, Mitakuyasin, right? All my relations. We must remember this, because our world will make us forget it. We must vow to participate in that cycle. These different practices we do, which the Vedas call tapasyas, are really just connecting us to these laws of nature that we must cooperate with to be healthy and to be thriving as humans. And so that's really the essence behind these rituals, is to connect us to that realm.
Hey everybody, I hope you're enjoying the show. I wanted to take a quick moment to let you all know that the doors are officially open for the Conscious Cannabis Collective. And as such, this is the last week you can sign up and receive all of the bonuses we're currently including. This is the last time I will be personally onboarding those of you who sign up with a complimentary one-on-one session, and you'll have the ability to get the Grow with Cannabis course for free during this limited time. For more info on how you can take advantage of this offer, head down to the show notes for this episode and secure your spot today, as we only have so many spots left and they are filling up quickly. Now back to the show. What is up, everybody? I hope you are all enjoying the show, and I wanted to stop by real quick and share a little bit about our latest podcast sponsor, Freedom Builders. Now, Freedom Builders are a team of graphic designers, website creators, videographers, social media marketing experts, and coaches that build out your custom online business from A to Z. This is a done-for-you service, which means they do the work for you while you get to put your focus back on what you love most, which is coaching your clients and bringing in sales. Now, as a former online fitness coach, Mike knows where your struggle points are and exactly how to help you overcome them. This is why he created Freedom Builders, so that you can scale your business while protecting your time and your energy. Now, you guys know that delegation is a business superpower, and you can activate this superpower today by scheduling a complimentary call with Mike at freedombuilders.com so you can start building the freedom that allows you to take your business to the next level. Alex and I recently connected with Freedom Builders for our Connect With Cannabis build-out, and we could not have been happier with the results. With Mike and his team, they were able to go through an outline and create a personalized program for our experience, develop our brand identity, build and design a custom branded webpage, professionally edit our program video content, custom design all of our slide presentations, automate our email marketing sequences, create a seamless payment system for our offer, design unique infographics for our social media content, and guide us through our proven launch blueprint to generate organic leads through our social media. So if you're a coach, facilitator, or healer listening to this ad right now, and you are looking to put freedom back into your life, once again, go to freedombuilders.com and book your complimentary call today. I hope you all enjoy the rest of the show, and I'm wishing you the best day ever. Absolutely, man. I mean, what a beautiful and poetic, amazing description of that. And I took some notes during it as well. And, one of the things I loved in there when you were talking about archetypal energy and archetypes is that, this is exactly what a lot of people are speaking about, like Joe Dispenza. But I think a lot of people might not connect them, because I didn't really connect it until right now, where he's saying, imagine the reality you want. Well, that's the blueprint, right? It comes from imagination. And I think that one of the biggest challenges in today's world with a very left brain dominant society is that imagination is omitted in many cases. And so people are taking action, not from inspiration, but from whatever their mind is telling them to do. And in regards to that, they're not allowing themselves to connect with the flow of nature. And when you go against the tide rather than with the tide, well, you're going to face a lot of resistance. And when we look at the state of the world right now, it's pretty easy to see that we are in a deep need and a deep, profound point at which we need to return to the laws of nature. And we need to start going with nature, because at the end of the day, I think there's this unconscious belief with man right now. And I know this a lot from cannabis industry specifically, where most people cultivate cannabis with chemical salt nutrients. I started thinking, like, what is the unconscious belief that would allow someone to make chemical salt nutrients and actually grow that way? Well, when I dove into it and I did some reflection on it, I really came to the idea that man thinks it's smarter than nature, and it can outsmart nature. Oh, we don't need the soil food web. We don't need microbes. We don't need these things. We can just make this stuff in a lab, give it to the plants, and the final product will be totally fine. And guess what? Our quantitative testing shows there's no heavy metals or any of these quantitative things, but it leaves out the entire qualitative aspect of the equation, which is, what is the energy in that final product? And this goes with food. This goes with literally anything. And so when we look at conventional farming, for instance, right? Your brother is huge on this, and I know you are too, where, we're poisoning these topsoils because we're not supplying the ashes back to the land. We're not allowing the soil food web to actually do its thing. We're saying, no, that was nice, but we know better and we can do better than that. And what we're noticing now is that the topsoils are dying. And if those die, then the plants that the animals eat are going to be deficient. then the animals are going to be deficient, and then we eat the animals, and then we're deficient as a result of it. And this is one of the many reasons why so many people are deficient in micronutrients these days, because they're eating from a soil ultimately that is depleted. And I think that when I do my rituals, I am specifically connecting to all the 7 directions. Mystery School dives into a lot of different things, all based on light. When we look at the statement enlightenment, right, it's bringing light into you. And I think that that's really interesting because, like you were saying, if you have a dark room, the only thing that can liberate that darkness is light, right? You can't liberate darkness with more darkness. And I think that's where a lot of people are challenged right now, just as a overarching theme in life. And I think that by establishing these types of rituals that work with the rhythm of nature, you can start to have a lot more harmony and cohesiveness to your experience of life. That's what I've experienced. I imagine that's exactly what you've experienced. And it's interesting that no matter what ancient religion you look into or ancient spiritual practice, they're all speaking the same language, right? I mean, maybe different actual languages, but they're all speaking to the same things. No matter where you look, they're all thanking the 7 directions. They're all doing these types of things. And so it really begs the question, what have we forgotten about that right now we do not remember, right? And I think that where we have all this amazing technology and all these great advancements, where our foundation is very shaky. And just like if we build a house on a shaky foundation, doesn't matter how amazing the house is, it's going to fall at the nearest rainstorm or windstorm. And I think that's where we stand right now in society. We have a very shaky foundation. And I think that we're starting to see the house starting to fall apart. And I think that, rather than make a doomsday scenario, I think this is a really good aspect of being able to surrender, which surrender is the ultimate state of receiving, which is feminine energy, which the earth is feminine, nature is feminine in many different ways. And so we are starting to see a potential for people to start feeling the necessary pain point from the pain teacher to be able to start enacting these types of rituals into their life. But one of the amazing things about having you on the show is that not only can we gain this awareness, but we can also start to actually understand, like you were saying with the mantras and things, what these rituals look like or could look like in one's day-to-day practice. And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just reminds me of a couple of things. With modern science, we can look at a bird, let's say a hummingbird, and we can figure out how the hummingbird flies. We probably can figure out the speed at which it's flapping its amazing wings, which is incredibly fast, or how it does what it does, how it flies, or the aerodynamics and things like that. But we don't know what is the intelligence that made the hummingbird. That's what I want to know, right? I don't care how the hummingbird's flying. What created all this beauty? What created the hummingbird? What created the fact that the trees are working with the sun and the water and the rain, and that's helping us create fire and extracting metals and participating in this whole reciprocity, right? There's this amazing intelligence behind everything we do, and we're so stuck down in the minutia of trying to figure out how it all works versus asking the question, who or what created this? And so that is connecting through the rituals to that realm of the intelligence behind all of the beauty that we see. It reminded me of a joke where there was a scientist who goes to God and says, yeah, I can make a human being, and so God says, all right, just go figure it out, go try it out. So the guy goes in, he gets some soil, and he's putting all these different pieces together, and then he makes this human, and he brings the human to God, and God says, well, where did you get the soil? Right? So it's we think we can make all of these things with our modern day science, but there's an intelligence that's inconceivable, really, that we can't even use our thinking faculties to understand. And that is the purpose of rituals, at least for me, is to connect to that side. I mean, Einstein, I don't like using the word God because it's not a very well-defined word in English. It's quite sloppy, and we could get into really the meaning of God if you want, but Einstein said, I want to know the mind of God, right? The rest is just details. That mind of God is that archetypal, that Davic realm that we're connecting to through rituals.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. And one of the things that got downloaded to me when you were talking was, transformation of question asking that I've been really into recently is like you were talking about with the hummingbird. What are the components of it versus what is the intelligence that made it? It's like when people ask, what do you do when they meet you versus who are you when they meet you? That's the real meat and potatoes that I'm interested in. Like, who are you as an individual, but also who are you as a part of the collective? A lot of people just say that typical thing of, oh, what do you do? But I think what they're really interested in when you really boil down to it is who are you? Because I think that if we are all reflections of one another, then understanding who someone really is can help us get back to who we really are. Because as within, so without, as above, so below. And so I really love this thread that we're on, because I really feel that there are so many easy, actionable steps for someone listening to just start asking questions differently, to just start pondering about like, yeah, what is the intelligence that made a hummingbird? Not what are the components of soil, but what made soil? And, it's so interesting when we dive into these realms, because for me, it's pretty hilarious because, as you start getting into this and you start following the thread and you start getting closer to who knows what, but you feel as though you're getting warmer and warmer towards something really prophetic and really profound. It's all you want to talk about, and I think this has been one of the challenges with, you go to a grocery store and you talk to someone who might not be into spirituality. And it's not that you're not interested in talking with them, but a lot of the times you're like, let's get to the meat and potatoes here. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges when you get into this stuff, is that I know for me, like about 7 years ago, when I really started to get into this stuff, TV, all of those things, even shows that I enjoyed, just weren't cutting it for me. Because I was like, hey, this is cool, it's entertaining, but I would rather be watching Gaia about ancient civilizations and figuring out like, why are we here? What is our purpose? How do we make the best of what we can do while we're here? And I think it's so interesting. And one of the many reasons I love this particular podcast, because especially with you, because we get to dive into these subjects, and it is what I'm obsessed with. I was talking to Ian Morris yesterday.
Oh, he's one of my close buddies.
He's awesome. I told him that I knew you. He's like, oh, of course. And we chopped it up for an hour just on our intro chat. He was talking about this awareness of, music and how all these things work, and, all of this intricate detail. And we were talking about plant medicines too. And he was talking to his mother about it, and her saying like, I just don't really understand like why you would want to do these things. And he was like, listen, I know that you haven't had the direct experience, but once you do, the way you look at life changes. And it doesn't mean that it changes necessarily in a positive or negative way. It just changes, it alters. And I think that's one of the most powerful things that can come forth with even just rituals, right? Like psychedelics are just one river that out of many rivers that can lead to the same sea, albeit they might be a little bit quicker, but they also might open you up so much that you have no idea how to reintegrate into daily life. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, where at least if you have these ritual practices and you start actually experiencing the divine, the unknown, any of these terms that we could put on it, and then you interact with plant medicines, you at least have a little bit more room in which to place these experiences. And you might be able to quickly say, oh, I guess I don't know what I don't know. And Ian and I were talking about how we're both obsessed with lost civilizations, Atlantis, Lemuria, the Mu, all the other lost civilizations. And it was just so fun nerding out with him and diving into these things, because he's very similar to you. I could go to Atlantis right away, and he's like, yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down. And so I love this, man.
Yeah. Well, there's a few things I want to hit on there. One is, we use this word spirituality, but what I've learned in my studies of English and Sanskrit with Jeffrey is that spirituality just means to breathe. So if we say we're spiritual, it's saying, okay, so you're breathing? Great. Tell me more about you. So, the English language really needs a tune-up. And I know Laurel Erica, she's great at this as well. And I work with her on my own writing. But, words like the yogic path or the dharmic path, or, as Castaneda would say, the path of knowledge, this individuation, these are more descript words for talking about what we're talking about. And they also in the Vedas have a word called adhikari, which is assessing one's readiness for information based on their life experiences and their past life experiences. So as you meet somebody in the grocery store, you have to assess what they're ready for based on their level of education in this life and in the past life, to know where to meet them where they're at, right? And so when we get back to this idea of rituals, There's a great story in the Vedas where they say the chances of they talk about the chances of having a human body, and they say there's a seagull that flies over all of the oceans, right? One seagull flying over all the oceans with this silk scarf in its mouth. And there's an ancient turtle that lives deep down in the ocean. And every 100 years, the turtle comes up for a breath of air. The chances that when that turtle comes up for a breath of air over the expanse of the entire ocean, that the seagull is crossing over at that exact point and that the turtle touches the silk scarf. The chances of that happening are the chances the yogis say that of us having a physical body here in this world. So just to wake up and to say, oh my God, I have this body. What a gift. Despite what's going on, I'm here. This is like winning the lottery. That in and of itself is one of the greatest rituals, just to connect you to the awe of this mystery of how you even got here. And instead of taking it for granted and just going on with your day, it's starting with this gratitude for being alive. And oh my God, the sun is rising. How marvelous that this thing comes up, and singing to it and chanting its praises and raising your vibration and really kind of getting into it. And this time before the sun rises is this special yogic time when we're the most impressionable. Think about a child being very impressionable by their surroundings, their parents, their culture, their teachers, their siblings, etc., when they're young. And so metaphorically, we are reborn every morning. And in that early morning part of the day, which is sort of this birth, childlike stage of our day, right? And going to sleep at night would be more like our death. We are very impressionable too. So getting up in the morning, doing your tapasya, doing your practices, generating heat, singing mantras, doing yoga, doing exercise, meditation, these things at that time really can make a real big impression on you. And we all know the importance of a first impression, right? So that's where rituals start, for me at least.
Oh, I love that, man. And I highly agree. I mean, I love having a morning ritual practice and a nighttime ritual practice. And one of the things that you said that reminded me of something Ian said yesterday was this whole idea of understanding what someone, like how much information someone is ready to receive. Mm-hmm. He had this, I believe it was his uncle, who was extremely knowledgeable, very similar to yourself in a lot of different things. If he was speaking about something a little in depth and someone went, wow, where'd you learn that? He would say, I read a good book once. And then he would know, because if they went, cool, and they went along, that was the end of it. But if they said, what book? Then he knew the invitation was made to actually dive in deeper and go, okay, this person's ready to hear something, right? And then you can gauge from there.
I used to think about that when I was a Wall Street trader. I would go, I did a very specific type of weather trading in weather derivatives and its impact on commodity markets. And I had a whole very specific, we call alpha or competitive edge, in my own niche. And so if I saw somebody and they said, what do you do? I said, oh, I'm a weather trader. I do this or that. They said, oh, is that like stocks? That was for me, okay, this person's not really ready, right? Because they just are saying, okay, yeah, great, you read a book. Mm-hmm. They don't really know. But if they said, oh, tell me more about that, I'm interested in commodities and natural gas or this or that and its impact, then I would go deeper with them, right? So that's a really, really good metaphor for understanding someone's adhikari or readiness to learn.
Yeah, because the last thing you want to do, and I've been guilty of this so many times before I actually understood human design and understood this idea of waiting for the invitation, the last thing you want to do is that machine gun firer who's like machine gunning Atlantis and Lemuria onto someone who's like, man, I don't care at all about this, but I'm like, no, you need to hear this, right? That's the wrong way to go about life. And I think that, that's been a ritual practice in and of itself for me. And understanding if we are all sovereign beings and we all have free will, then who wants to actually hear what I'm going to say? Because those are the people that I want to focus on. So I make sure that I have that energetic reciprocity. But at the same time, I don't want to put this on someone that doesn't want to hear it, that's not interested, right? It's not their flavor of ice cream. Because I think we all get to pick what our flavor of ice cream is in this life. And I don't think that one is better than the other. I think they're just different. Like chocolate is not inherently objectively better than coffee. It just might be your favorite over coffee. And so I think that, the universe always speaks to me in food analogies. So I always bring up the ice cream analogy because I think it really resonates. But getting back to morning and nighttime rituals, for me, I like providing a certain amount of structure but I learned pretty quickly that having too much structure to my rituals was kind of like a diminishing return. And what I mean by that was, I used to wake up and say, okay, this is exactly what I'm going to do each day in the exact order. But what I started to realize was, well, maybe some days I wake up and I want to meditate right away. I'm a little bit higher of energy and I just want to get right into meditation. Maybe some days I wake up a little more tired and I want to go outside right into the sun and do breath work. And so I started to realize, instead of having a specific structure to how my rituals go, I would just put a 2.5 hour slot on my calendar each day for quote unquote ritual practice. And then I would wake up, tune into how I feel that day. What do I need? Right? It's kind of like, if you have a fridge full of food and you're not that hungry that day, well, you're probably not going to cook up, animal meat and really have a lot of protein. You might have a salad, you might have some fruit, you might have whatever. But if you're telling yourself, no, I have to eat the same meal at the same time every day, well, then you're not really going on your body's innate wisdom. You're more so just going from the duality of the mind and the structure of the mind. And I think that, especially for men, because we know the masculine is this structure, I think this is really important to understand, is that structure is great right up until the point where it's a diminishing return. And so it is that fine line you walk. And I'm curious for you, like, when you do your rituals, do you have similar rituals you do each day? Do you do them in the same order? Do you do them in different orders certain days? What's that look like for you?
Yeah, great question. I just want to hit a few things because you just brought up some amazing things. When I think this is a good tagline, when we're talking to other people and wanting to share some of our understanding or viewpoints, one thing to remember is never for conversion, not for coercion, only with conversation. Right? We're not there to convert. We're not there to coerce. We're there to converse. And I think that's a really important thing to take away. I mean, it's so easy to want to, often it's just out of, I just experience how good it feels to eat this way, or to drink this way, or to move this way, or to live this way. But somebody has to be ready and open to receive that information in order to not be essentially coercing or trying to convert. And I'm glad you brought up that food analogy, because in the Vedas, they talk about the rasas. So, in English, we say love. I love my dog. I love my wife. I love my husband. I love my grandmother. I love my car. I love my job. I love this TV show. And we use the same word that we don't really even know what it means for all of these different forms of emotions. But in the Vedas, they have these things called rasas, which are really the flavors or the dances of love. And they have all of these different emotions and all of these different experiences and all of these stories around them. So the love is like these flavors. And the same thing goes with morning rituals or practices or exercise. We don't want to be just eating vanilla ice cream the rest of our life. We want to experience the full rainbow of possibilities. And the same thing can happen with love. The love for a pet versus the love with an intimate partner is a completely different kind of love. And there's a science behind all of that as well. When you talk about this rigidity, I don't think you use that word, but going from rigidity to fluidity, I think is an important point there, because, I've been very rigid before about exercise. I got to get up, I got to work out in a certain way, and I have to do this and do this and do that. But a simple technique that I learned from Paul Chek was checking my morning heart rate. And so now I'm getting a feedback of saying, okay, I know my morning heart rate, my average is about 50 beats per minute. And if I'm 47, 48, 49 in the morning before I get out of bed, or 50, 51, 52, I'm good to go and work out today. But if I'm 53, 54, 55, or 55 to 60 or 60 to 65, I know my likelihood of getting injured and screwing myself up has just gone up 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x, depending on how high my heart rate is. I used to be rigid about that. I would say I have to work out. I have to go do an hour of aerobics or go do deadlifts or do this. But then this simple practice of just checking in with your body, and this is a great biofeedback mechanism that you don't need any device or any hacking to do. You just check your pulse for 60 seconds. You could even do it for 15 and multiply by 4 to get your heart rate. It doesn't take much time at all. First thing in the morning before you get out of bed. And all of a sudden now you're adjusting your daily practice just based on that. This is the day that I need to work in. This is the day that I could work out. This is a day that I need complete rest. And that goes over to the other types of rituals as well. And that is developing a practice of talking to your soul, or in the Vedas, talking to your Atma. And so this gets to a point where we have to change our vantage point of who we are. We normally have this identification that we are this physical body, but through deeper practices, we learn that we are something different. We are the soul, or the Atma, this immortal, indivisible, individual being that lives inside this vehicle, this car. They call it a karana. That's where we get the word car from. It's sort of the chariot or the car we're driving. We're not this body. We're what's inside of it. And then when we start to talk to that part of ourselves, and we understand that there are these different flavors of love and these different flavors of exercise, these different flavors of meditation and tapasya and practices and yoga and et cetera, that there's tons and tons of food, tons and tons of spices. We can go to a Korean restaurant. We can go to a Thai restaurant. We can do all these different things. We start to realize that we have a lot of options, and coming from the place of what is our soul, where's our soul guiding us today? What does this vehicle that we're driving really need? And not coming from the place of what does our mind think we need to do based on some sort of rigid program that we've set out for ourselves that somebody else probably told us.
Yeah. You just brought something up that I think is the cornerstone, or the foundation, to bring that word up again, of why one would do rituals. I stated this a little bit in the intro, but I think it's worth going back into, is that it allows you to switch your point of orientation into that Atma, into your soul, into realizing who and what you truly are. So then you are liberated from the mind. It doesn't mean that you don't have the mind chatter still going on, but you're separate from it. You're not in the thick of it. And I think this is where, when we look at the world, and I look at my previous life, right? This is really where a lot of people are at. They're getting annihilated each day by orienting with the mind instead of who and what they truly are. And I think that, these rituals give us a time where our lives are so busy in the modern day world. We have no shortage of things on our to-do list or things on our calendar, but we have an opportunity to kind of work with that tide. Okay, this is the way that life is right now. Hopefully, whoever you are listening to this, your calendar is filled with lots of things that you love to do. But let's say that maybe you don't love what you're doing, right? It's even more imperative then that you change that orientation right when you wake up. Because I truly believe that the best time to capture your energy is right in the morning, because you have all the awareness, you have all the ability to put a stop to the mind chatter and all of these things that you're identifying with right from the get-go. If you try to do it at 1 or 2 in the afternoon after you've already had meetings and you've been stressed out, it's going to take a lot longer. It's possible, but it's going to take a lot longer. And certain mornings might take longer, certain ones might take shorter, depending on how you feel that day. But I think that being able to wake up and go, how do I feel today? What's my heart rate? What's the information that I can learn about myself today as a new individual, right? The version of me yesterday does not exist. The version of me tomorrow does not exist. I am here now in the present moment. What does this modern day version of Ryan or Jason, what do they want today, right? What do I feel that I can handle today? And this is something that has been challenging because, I imagine you know this too. When you're doing something you love and you have a full day and you wake up and you're just not feeling on, you don't have the sauce that day, it's a challenge because, at least for me, the mind tells me just push through it, thug it out, do it anyway. But I think that the more that you do that, the more that you start going away from that body's innate wisdom. And so what I've really gotten into the practice of now is waking up, and half the time the schedule does it for me, where things just cancel. I was talking about on Monday, I had 3 podcasts. I woke up kind of tired, but I was like, well, I think I'll be able to do it. And then those podcasts all canceled. And so it was kind of like the universe working with me and saying, you don't need to do those today. Have some more time to just relax, go take a walk, be near the ocean, all of these kind of things. And, I think that as we start working with this rhythm of nature through ritual practice, I think that nature starts responding back in many different ways. But the funny thing is that most people that are in a left brain state are like, well, what does it say English to you? And I'm like, not usually. It's more like symbolism, metaphor, imagery, sensations, feelings, emotions, all of these things. And what I really loved about what you said about the different shades of love is that I feel we're cracking into the understanding of what Joseph Campbell meant when he said bliss is any emotion felt all the way through. Because I think that the duality of the mind, what it does is it takes this shade of love, right? If love is the governing force of the universe, then in reality, what my hypothesis is in this moment is that maybe every emotion is love, but just every emotion is love, but maybe just different shades of it. And so what does the mind do? It says, well, that one's sadness, that one's anger, that one's grief. But at the end of the day, we know that any emotion, even as low as shame on David Hawkins' scale, can lead all the way up to enlightenment. So they must be on the same spectrum, but yet the duality makes it like, I don't want that one, I do want that one. And so we start getting ourselves in a really slippery slope. And I think that when we wake up and we do these ritual practices and we tune into how we feel, we can more easily transmute, say, shame or guilt or one of these lower vibrational states into its full form, which is love, compassion, enlightenment. And I think that's really something that I've started to really have the understanding of recently that's really liberated me a lot from this emotional roller coaster that, speaking for myself, I was on for years.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, if you think about emotions are clearly more powerful than thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And the emotion of separation from a loved one, the longing for a loved one, that can be more intense and even more love than being with the person.
Yeah.
Right. And so, we could look at that as sort of on the side of the continuum of emotions that we don't want, but it's actually could be seen as even a higher state of loving than even being with our partner, right? They say, what is it? Absence makes the heart grow stronger.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, totally about that. And even this idea of a lover's quarrel. There's this right amount of energy where you're sort of quarreling with your loved one that can turn into intimacy. Now, if you don't know how to manage that tension, which is the real meaning of Tantra. Tantra is the balancing of these forces, these masculine and feminine, non-gender, but these masculine and feminine energies that are pulling on us, that we're all inside of, these dynamic relationship. This Tantra, if we know how to manage the lover's quarrel, that can turn into great intimacy. At the same time, if we don't know how to manage that lover's quarrel, it can turn into a very abusive situation, right? Mm-hmm. One of the ways that I want to talk about this again, because one of the ways that I found so useful for myself to get into that right vibration and that right energy is through the use of mantras. Mantras for me give me that direct experience. And there are flavors of mantras for all different types of emotions. So I wake up in the morning, the first thing I'm doing is, okay, I'm here, I woke up, what was I dreaming? Okay, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And it's not 3 minutes before I'm dancing around my room, just in this state of bhakti, this devotional state of energy, just because of the science of these sounds. And that to me has been the most direct way, is just to start singing, just to start chanting the praises of the intelligence behind everything that we're seeing, chanting and praising to the beauty that supports all of us through these ancient scientific vibrations and frequencies that naturally tune up our body in this unchanging, perfect language called Sanskrit. And that for me has really done it. So, we're going to forget 1,000,000 times a day. In the Vedas, they say, always remember and never forget. Once you learn this, once you get it, that who you are the Atma, you are not this body. Where do you come from? You come from a realm and you chose to be here and to have this sort of experience and to be in this university, to learn and to grow and to experience life and to experience a certain purpose and a certain dharma and a certain path. Once you remember who you really are, you do whatever you can never to forget it. And we're going to forget all day long. But these rituals bring us back. So, I'm cooking my breakfast. Om Namo Bhagavate. I'm in the bank. Om Namo Bhagavate. I'm giving my kids a bath. Om Namo. Now they're singing it with me. Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So whatever that is for you, you find that and you just go back to it. You just go back to it. It's like going back to the breath meditation. For me, it's going back to the mantra. It's going back to that vibration and constantly being in that state. And when you're in that state and you know who you are, you see everyone else for who they really are. When you put your hands together and say namaste, it's like, oh, I see you.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about before, it's saying, what do you do for a living, or, these various questions, but it's seeing that person, seeing the tree, seeing the bird, seeing you right now for who you really are, an immortal soul behind the personality and behind the body and behind your job and all of your identity. You are an immortal being, and seeing that. And then when I can see that in you, you can start to see it in yourself, and you can then reflect it back to me. And then the whole world is a namaste culture.
What's up, ladies and gents? I wanted to take a second while I had your ear to share with all of you a very important announcement. Anyone who has been listening to the show for some time now knows that I am passionate about health and wellness and helping other health and wellness professionals up-level their health and wellness practice. What I have noticed in working with hundreds of health and wellness professionals is that health and wellness pros of all different types are facing challenges with being able to get their clients strong, consistent results, understand where to put their energy to allow their practices to thrive, stand out in the vast sea of health and wellness pros out there, move from imposter syndrome into trusting themselves, and ultimately make the money necessary to be financially independent in their health and wellness practice. Now, the root of these issues comes down to a lack of connection with your creative force as a health and wellness professional and entrepreneur. This is why we at Highly Optimized have created the Connect With Cannabis 12-week facilitation certification program. The reason that cannabis is the focus of our program is because cannabis can act as imagination medicine. And in order to break free of these challenges, one must first be able to imagine themselves as the health and wellness professional that is successful and has been able to break free of these challenges. When you are able to truly imagine and connect with the most powerful version of yourself, you can find the clarity to build your business, your authentic voice to speak directly to your clients, and the faith necessary to overcome everything standing in your way. Once you have experienced and learned how to achieve these results for yourself, you will be able to offer this same unique skill set in your health and wellness practice to support your clients in overcoming their limiting beliefs and allow them to experience the breakthrough results that will make you stand out as a world-class health and wellness pro. In this program, you will learn the science behind cannabis, how to experience the healing powers of cannabis, and how to facilitate these healing powers with your clients. With personalized one-on-one support on how to apply these frameworks into your business and weekly group calls within a community of health and wellness pros just like you will be equipped with a unique skill set that will allow you to get consistent, powerful results with your clients, feel confident in your facilitation abilities, and allow you to gain financial independence while having the opportunity to wake up each day excited to share your important work with the world. For anyone listening who is hearing the call to set yourself apart and develop a unique set of cannabis facilitation skills not found anywhere else in the world, jump over to the link in our Instagram bio and book a complimentary call with me today. Together, we will go over your current challenges in your business, your goals for your business, and decide together whether you qualify for a seat in the program. The next class begins July 22nd, and spots are filling up quickly to be a part of the budding movement that is conscious cannabis education. So book your call today and position yourself as a leading voice of how to work with this sacred plant medicine in your practice. Thank you all for your continued support and enjoy the show. Yeah, and that's how we act as the medicine for one another, because it all starts within, right? And this is why Ram Dass said, the best thing I can do for me is work on me. The best thing I can do for you is work on me. In a world where we're told, focus on the external, I think that if everyone was able in a meditation or something to be able to start working on themselves and focusing on themselves, we would see the world shift in a very profound way. Because when you realize who and what you truly are, and you realize, and once again, just like you said, it's not that you'll always remember these things, but you have these pattern interrupts in the form of mantras and these other practices to be able to get you back in that seat of the soul and allow your mind to be back in the passenger seat where it belongs. Well, then you know what it also does it liberates you from the victim mentality, and it liberates you from thinking, woe is me, life is happening to me, all of these things. And not to go down conspiracy alley, but it is a psychedelic podcast, so I feel like it's warranted. But when we look around at society, whether they know they're doing this or not, I'm not going to speak on that, but they are, the messaging that the mainstream media is giving and all of these things are essentially telling people you are a victim. And you know what? It's okay to be upset over that. And you know what? It's okay to feel like you have no power. And I see that. And as a coach and as a practicing shaman and all of these things, I go, hey, this is very challenging, because that is one of the main ways people externalize their power, because it feels great, but not in like a really deep way. It feels great to the small version of you to accept you're a victim and that you have no ability to change your life, because guess what? Then you have nothing to do. But it's like a leaking battery, where eventually your battery's not going to be able to charge anymore. Now, it might feel great to be like, oh, sorry, I can't use my battery today because it's just broken a little bit and it's starting to leak. But after a while, when that battery is so depleted, it's going to take you a long time, if you choose to start coming out of that victim mentality, to be able to actually start going, no, I do have power and I can create my reality and I chose to be here and this is all well and good for me. And it's not the easy choice, but it's the only one that's going to be able to liberate you and actually allow you to live life rather than have life live you. And that's one of the best things that I've been able to really dive into in my own journey in the past, I'd say 8 or 9 years. And like I said, it is not easy. It might sound simple, but simple does not equate to easy. But I can say, speaking from experience, that it has been the most liberating thing and journey I've gone on thus far in my life.
Yeah. I mean, what you were talking about is essentially advertisement, right? I mean, we can't market homeopathic medicines or natural cures for cancer, but it's okay to have, Ronald McDonald on every screen in the country, right? I mean, it's really quite backwards. And what our enculturation really does to us in a lot of times, because we get so just confused and we have so much suffering based on, trying to live up to these certain ideals and do, various things that we think we need to do, that we throw away the individual. We throw away our own power, and we think, that it's all emptiness, it's all oneness, or nothing that I do matters. This is not a purposeful universe. And we forget that we chose to be here. We chose to be here, and that, each one of us is an individual and needs to take responsibility for that, and needs to take responsibility for where we're at and where we're going. Rituals connect us back to that taking responsibility for individuality. And shamanic practices like psychedelics can certainly open up our eyes to that fact that there's way more out there than we can see, and that these other realms, these archetypal, these Davic realms do exist, that there are purposeful laws of nature, that we are an individual here for a purpose. And the key then is then to integrate it back into our life, right? These psychedelic experiences are not recreational. They call them a shamanic journey. It's not a shamanic party. So we go into these experiences, our minds get opened to what's already around us all the time. And we go back into our house, or we go back onto the mat, or whatever we want to say, and start really integrating what we learned in our everyday life. That's really the key. And that's connecting back to these purposeful laws of nature and these rituals every morning. It's getting up, singing to the sun, being grateful to have a human body, moving your body, doing particular practices, meditation, breath work, chanting, etc., all to get into relationship, which is the final goal of Ashtanga Yoga. The 8 limbs of Ashtanga Yoga is samadhi, which is to be the same as, right? So the reason you do this, they have the yams and the niyams, which are these moral sort of precepts. It's being in right relationship with the community, and then sort of what Paul Chek might call the 4 doctors, right? So having the right diet, having the right movement, cleanliness, proper speech, various things, to be sort of a moral individual. In other Abrahamic cultures, you could look at them sort of as like the 10 Commandments or something like that. And then you move into asana, which is the movement practice, right? And there's hundreds of millions of people doing yoga in the West who are just doing asana and calling that yoga. And now that's a great thing, because they're getting exposed to the beginning. But as my teacher Jeffrey says, they're going about yoga asana backwards, right? First before the asanas, the first two steps are being in right relationship, knowing the vehicle that you're driving. What is your svadharma? What is your purpose for being here? And what are you inclined to do with this body? How to manage this body? What's the rule book? What's the guidebook for managing your body? How to eat for your right body type? How to breathe? How to drink? How to move? Then you get into the asana, which is the correct movement practices. Then you get into the breathing, pranayama. It's learning how to breathe. Then you go into pratyahara, which is this turtling, this pulling in of the senses, going within, from the outside world, going within. Then dharana, one-pointed focusedness. Then meditation and mantra, and then samadhi, the same as. So the whole purpose of this whole experience is to become the same as, is to realize that as above, so below. We are just like this Devic realm. We are just like this archetypal realm. The laws of nature that are around us that are governing all the beauty we see are the same laws that are governing our own body. And to become the same and to have direct experience with that through all these rituals and these correct practices.
Yeah, I mean, it's so powerful and so beautiful. And when we look back at, like I said, again, any ancient philosophy or, spiritual practice or religion, whatever you want to call it, they might not have had cell phones, but they were also able to communicate telepathically, right? So a lot of times we look at them as like, oh, look at these barbarians, and it's like they didn't have cell phones, they didn't have cars. Well, they knew how to astral travel, they knew how to communicate telepathically. They didn't need the same things because they were using the faculties that we all have. Yet for most of us, they've atrophied in one way or another. Because when we're a kid and we're telling our parents that we're seeing, being, they're like, that's not really there. And so we learn, oh, that's not either safe to do or see, or that's just something I'm making up. And so they start atrophying. And I always think of it kind of like a video game character, where when you start a video game, one character's speed might be through the roof, another one's, strength might be through the roof, but they all have different, amounts of each skill. Our mission, quote unquote, in life, our invitation is to start diving in and working on our character. But I think most people end up working on it externally, right? As if like, okay, I go get the degree, then I get the job, and then I'll feel happy. When in reality, it's actually the other way around. When you actually find happiness within, that will tell your heart, that will allow your heart to lead and bring you to the right things that will enhance that happiness. But it all starts within. And I think that that's another one of these amazing things that rituals do, is they allow you each morning to find your heart, to connect with your soul, and then take action from that place of inspiration rather than take action based on what programs, patterns, and limiting beliefs the mind is telling you to take action from. And I think that's what I meant when I say, the mind is a great tool, absolutely fantastic, but it's meant to be in the passenger seat. And where was all of this in school, right? Like never did any of this get talked about. But thank goodness we learned the Pythagorean theorem, and it's like, it's not that the Pythagorean theorem is useless, but it's just like, again, it's like, what is the foundation from which to apply all of these teachings onto? And if we don't understand that, well, that's why the state of the world looks like as it does, as in my opinion. And so it's very interesting, man. And these are the things that I love getting into.
Well, there's just a few things I wanted to say there, because every time you're talking, I'm just taking notes because it's inspiring me. But we think of these. You're talking about this. I don't know how you set up, but sort of this cellular technology, right? We have Wi-Fi, we have cell phones, but we forget that we have cells in our body. So this is again another as above, so below. We have these cells in our body that are wirelessly communicating. We have our own Wi-Fi. We have our own cell phones in our cells, right? And so it's about turning from the internet to the internet. When we use the internet, we're connecting to our innate wisdom, and really through our own technology or our own Wi-Fi, we can connect to the collective consciousness of the entire planet or the entire universe. Rudolf Steiner talks about man will try to find all of the technologies outside of themselves until they realize that all of that is created within themselves. The question is, will they destroy the world before they realize that, right? A great teacher that one of my yoga instructors, Anthony Carlisle Prem, turned me on to, named Ishwarji, talks about the levels of priorities. And he says that the first priority is the spiritual priority, which we've learned is not the right word, but we can call that the spiritual priority or the yogic path. The next one is your family, and then your friends, and then your business. We so much have those flipped, right? Where our business is first, maybe our friends are even second, or our family second, and then our individuation or our inner path is last. And that inner path, that yogic path, that spiritual path, that is the top priority in one's day. It's about changing our idea of success. For me, it's been about changing the idea that success is accomplishment and achievement and acknowledgement to success is nourishment. How many people am I feeding? How many people, how am I taking care of? How well am I taking care of my family and my friends and my community? And in the shamanic cultures, they talk about the 4 different directions. So, you have the wheel of the north, south, east, and west. And there are many, 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 many layers of this. But the north is the level of our mind. And we so much have the north driving our experience, but really the center, which is when we can actually assimilate all four of the directions and move into the center. That's the level of the soul, or the Atma. And that's the one that's supposed to be determining our experience, not our mind. But we so much have it backwards, where we're letting our mind determine our experience instead of using the mind as a tool for visioning and imagination and creativity, and letting the soul be the driver.
Hello, everybody. I hope you are all enjoying the show. I wanted to stop by and fill you in on our brand new, completely free to join Facebook community called the Highly Optimized Ceremony Circle. I imagine many of you are aware of the newest creation within Highly Optimized, which is the Connect With Cannabis program. Alex and I are having so much fun empowering health and wellness professionals with the skill set of facilitating conscious cannabis and helping them up-level their facilitation practice that we wanted to create a space where anyone could join to ask questions, receive free information on how to work with cannabis in the way we teach in the program, and be able to gain clarity around how to get the best results with their clients in order to become financially independent in their health and wellness practice. To join, hop over to the link in our Instagram bio and send us a request. It is our intention to assist as many health and wellness professionals as possible in the important work they are doing in the world. And if you are looking to join a community of like-minded individuals just like you, who are passionate about helping their clients achieve the highest quality of life possible, the Highly Optimized Ceremony Circle is for you. I am looking forward to speaking with all of you in the group, and as always, enjoy the show. Yeah, man, it's that reorientation, right? And the cool thing is, anyone listening to this, no matter what age you are, no matter where you are in the world, everyone has access to this. And this is what I love about that foundation, is that no matter who you are, you have access to be able to do this. No matter how much you think you might not be able to, you have the opportunity to shift that belief and live into it as if. Because I think for a lot of people, they might listen to this and go, wow, I want to get there, but it's so far from where I'm at. Okay, cool. Well, why don't you give a stepping stone as like, okay, what if I live my life as if I could do this, as if I could tune into my soul, as if I could communicate with my heart, all of these types of things. And then the mind will start to go, okay, well, yeah, we can play out a scenario, no big deal, right? And so it kind of checks the mind and doesn't get it as triggered. Because a lot of times, like what I found is that the ego, it likes to think it's its own self. And so a lot of times when we start thinking about specifically language like kill the ego, kill your ego, it's like that can be really challenging. And so one of the things that I've done is work with my ego and say, hey, I know what you want. I know you're out for my best interest, but there's some things with you that I think, using the ego language, I think we'd look even cooler if we could reprogram these. Can you allow me to do this? Okay, cool. So then I live into the as if. What if I live my life as if these things were true, these new things I'm looking to integrate? And then I start experiencing them. Once I have one direct experience and my ego and all the other faculties within me goes, oh, that was cool. Well, then I can start moving from as if to matter of fact. Or then like now when I meditate, I know I'm going to get where I'm going. I know what I'm experiencing is real, not based on an objective, quantitative, scientific study that says this is objectively real, but from my own subjective experience. I have come to this conclusion on my own. And that's why, like you were saying a little while back, I don't try to convince anyone of what is objectively true and objectively not true, because I don't think there is any objective truth other than I am. And I don't think there's any objective reality. And so why would I tell someone, no, I know this is where you're going when you meditate. versus I know where I'm going based on what I choose to believe. And that's all that really matters. And if someone likes what I'm saying and they go, hey, I like that, cool, take that on, try it out for yourself. If you want to change it, go right ahead. But at the same time, if we all wear the same clothes in life and we try to get people to wear the same clothes, well, then there's no variety. There's no differentiating factors in life. A lot of the times, the most beautiful aspects of life to me are when I hear someone say something and I'm like, oh, actually, I like that a little bit more than mine. But if I think I'm so rooted in thinking that my way is the right way or the highway, then I'm not going to actually be able to listen fully to them. And what am I not listening to? Another version of God, to use that term, another version of God experiencing itself and reflecting itself back onto me, which is me. And so I think that there's so much opportunity to learn from one another, but at the same time, like you were saying, not coerce people into trying to agree with what we agree with on purpose, right? If someone ends up agreeing with what we do or what we say, great. But at the end of the day, I think that differentiality within the individual experiences that we each have are what make up the beauty of life. And that's really the things that I live for. And that's why I love asking people, who are you? Because I love to know, like, what is your unique expression in this life? What can I learn from you? What can I pick up? What can get downloaded to me? Like this whole conversation, right? We're both taking notes when we're talking. I got a whole page of notes here because I'm learning. I'm taking on things and I'm like, wow, that's really cool. I want to look more into that. But if we were so focused on saying, you need to believe this is the only way, well, then we've been missing out on this beautiful experience we had today. And I think that this is one of the things that I've learned over the past decade of doing this is that I want people to be fully themselves, no matter what that looks like. And that is the most beautiful experience or part of life in my truth that I've come to thus far.
Wow. Yeah. You said a lot. You said a lot there, and I think we're probably close to the end. So I'll just maybe kind of come in with a few points here. But this idea in process work that I study, Arnie Mindel's process-oriented psychology, this idea of deep democracy. Deep democracy is that everyone's viewpoint matters. Mm. Everyone has a bit of the truth. And instead of saying, oh, my way is the highway or my way is the only bit of truth, it's looking at the world from that perspective. It's every region, every religion, every culture all has their own truths. Now, there's a lot of stuff that we may want to throw away, but embedded in there are truths. And it's very important to hear all those truths, and not only to hear from all sides, but also to hear from all different levels of reality. So we have consensus reality, where it's sort of more this agreed upon stuff. Arnie Mindell says if 5 or more people agree on something, then it's sort of a consensus reality. But then there's this dreamland level, the level of dreaming and the level of archetypes and the level of the devas that we've talked about, and the level of these dream figures and these edge figures. You mentioned this whole idea of, oh, I can't do that, right? This whole thing that's an edge. Anytime we say, I can't do that. Oh, I could never dance in public. I could never sing in public. I could never live a certain way. These are all things that we've been encultured to believe based on probably the way our parents were. Our father said a man has to be a certain way, or our mother said, my mother would say to me, be a man, toughen up. What does that even mean? But, we go through these experiences of, thinking that we have to be shaped in a certain way, and we develop these edges to the rest of ourselves. We get so siloed into this one identity of who we think we are. And then there's so much more out there, even in ourselves. And so being deeply democratic to ourselves, listening to all the different parts of ourselves and all the different levels. And so one of the techniques from that are these sort of edge figures. There are actually these dream figures standing at the door like a bouncer to a club saying, do not enter here, right? And so you can have a conversation with them. You can role play that out. You can take their side, see what are they saying, and then you can fight back and stand up to them. Or like you said, you can imagine somebody that could do that. Maybe I don't think that I can sing in public, but I have a friend who could do it. What would it be like to be them in this moment? How would they move? How would they sing? How would they do it? If they could make a hand gesture like that person, what would that look like? And then we're sort of tunneling under those edges, and we have access to more parts of ourselves. One of the big things, I think is a theme for today is this thinking about what is the vantage point, what is the identification of who we are. And the Vedas, they say you're either aham kara, which is this idea that I am the body, or aham brahmasmi, that I am an immortal being from this illuminous realm called Brahman that has come here for a particular experience. And so what we're identifying with and as is a huge part to how we are living our life and from the perspective that we see other people. And just lastly, or maybe two more points, because my it looks like my battery is dying in my computer. But the word heart has hear and art in it. To use your heart is the art of hearing, and I think listening to others, embracing other perspectives, that is such an important piece. In the Vedas, this idea of the social body, where there's the professor class that makes up the head, the warriors make up the arm, the producers make up the belly, and the providers make up the leg. What part of your body would you want to cut off, right? We all are an important part of the whole. We're all a cell in this larger human body. All of our truths, all of our knowledge, all of our experiences matter. We have to open up our heart, start listening to others, and really start seeing ourselves not as the body, not as the car we're driving around. We wouldn't care if somebody was driving a black car or a white car or a red car or a yellow car, realizing that these are just our vehicles. There's something deeper that's inside of ourselves, seeing our neighbors as that, seeing ourselves as that, and acting from that place.
I love
and
that.
The last thing, if you're wondering what you can do each day to get a little bit more of this, just wake up and say, Om. 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 And let that bell and that vibration ring inside of you. You don't need to know anything more than that.
Oh, I love that, man. And it's funny because I'm already excited that we're going to have to do round 3. But Bruce Lipton talks about this next stage of human development from, it originally started as animism, and then it went to polytheism, and then monotheism, and then scientific materialism, which is where we're in pretty much right now. And then moving into holism, which is realizing that we're all individual cells of the same collective. And I think that's so beautiful, man. And I think another thing that we've kind of gone over here a little bit without stating the actual name to it is the 5th agreement from Don Miguel Ruiz, which is be skeptical, but learn to listen. And I think that this is one of the cool things is that when we learn to be skeptical and learn to listen, well, then we're less attached to the actual identity of what we're actually hearing and who's saying it, but we're also listening, right? Because we realize that we are ourselves. So it's like, okay, cool. I'm listening to what you're saying. I'm a skeptic, right? Like, I'm not sure if I'm going to take this on or take your truth as my truth, but I'm also listening because maybe I am going to. And I think that's really cool and really powerful, man. And, Jason, this has been an amazing flow, man. Wish we could go for 3 more hours, man. When I come out to your house, we're going to do an epic dive in around 3. But, man, tell the people where they can find you. Tell where they can connect with you. Let the people know where they can get you, man.
Yeah, the best way just right now is jasonpickard.org, JASONPICKARD.org. And you can contact me there and you can read a little bit more about me. And there's links to my other podcasts there that are getting updated frequently. So that's the best place to hit me up.
Beautiful. And I got a new last question, man, because I know I already I asked you the original one. And I changed it up after because, I thought about it. I was like, the way I was saying it before, I was like, I think there's a better way to say it. And so here's the question. Let's say that someone listened to this episode and felt very inspired to look into psychedelic medicine in their life. What is the one piece of advice that Jason Pickard would offer them to allow them to use discernment in choosing and deciding whether or not these medicines are right for them and their individual experience of life?
I think based on today's discussion, it would be important to think about who's asking that question. Is it my mind? Is it my desires, my body, or is this coming from a deep curiosity and longing and questioning deep inside my soul, my Atma, that's asking that? And I would say, in addition to that, make sure you find good support, a good teacher, guru, shaman, medicine man, mentor, somebody to guide you on the journey.
Very important. That, man. It's extremely important. I mean, without that, it's not that you won't have a good experience, but if you have a challenging one and you start to fragment, well, how are you going to be reintegrated back into your day-to-day life after that? That's where people have to then play catch up after they come out of the experience to go find out who can help them fully reintegrate. And a lot of times within these experiences, if we take too much, we can go too far out. And I think that, a lot of people with this more is better type mentality that the Western world specifically is kind of entrenched in, I think a lot of times when we apply that type of thinking into psychedelics, it is an extremely slippery slope. And so I love that piece of advice, man. It's really sound.
Yeah. Totally.
Okay,
I found the more I get into these ceremonies, I find the less medicine I actually need, because it's just more about letting go, and it's just about opening the door and letting go. So less can be more here, for sure.
Yes.
And if you go to the point where you're just fragmented and you're disassociating, and you're out of your body and you don't remember anything, well, you just wasted some really good medicine.
Yeah.
and you're taking some good risks associated with that. So the point is not to just, to black out, right? It's to go and to learn something and to bring it back and make it useful in your life.
I love that. Okay, guys. After recording the first episode with Jason on the show, I knew he was going to be a returning guest. And when I got the download to reach out to him this week to see if he was available, I knew it was fate when he said yes. Jason is one of the most incredibly passionate and heart-centered individuals I have ever had the pleasure of meeting in life. And even though we've done 2 episodes at this point, trust me when I say that we have only scratched the surface into the immense amount of knowledge and wisdom Jason has to share with each of you. For any of you looking to dive deeper into Jason's world, make sure you check out the show notes, where I will be listing all of the ways you can get in touch with him and find his website to begin expanding your awareness and getting more in touch with your divine nature today. Jason, thank you so much for being such a big inspiration in my life, for always being down to dive into an epic conversation with me, and for sharing your time and wisdom on the show today. And until next time, my brother, may your journey be smooth and full of light. Aho.